So, welcome to Angela.
I hate that. I really hate that. We both started school and we're both like too tired to come up with real topics that we have to research.
Do you feel like your relationship with social media has changed in college? Because I feel like some people are more, say, like heavily reliant on Snapchat because they're like, oh, this is how I only like keep track with a lot of people who I probably wouldn't normally talk to.
Mm-hmm.
Or some people I know who kind of purge their accounts. They're like, I'm too busy for this.
I feel like it depends on the social media. I feel like I use Snapchat more because it's like a really like low-key way to stay in touch with high school friends. Like even if I'm just like literally sending you like a picture of my face every single day, it still feels like if I were to like hit them up when I'm back home, it's not as like out of the blue, you know? Or like if I post something on my story and they swipe up, it's not as like weird when I see them in person. So I feel like it's like a really low-key way to maintain relationships. And also like when you meet people, it's super easy to be like, hey, what's your Snapchat? And then especially with Snap Maps now, it makes like going to parties and stuff so much easier because you can just look on Snap Maps and like see where everyone is. I hope I'm not the only person who does that because that's just gonna make me come up as like really creepy. How do you feel like with not having Snapchat? Because I feel like I use Snapchat so much that like if I didn't have Snapchat, I would feel like super out of the loop.
Honestly, like there are times, it's always like whenever you meet someone, they're like, oh, what's your Snapchat? And I do think it's like a good way to you also get to know people. And honestly, it's just been such a big relief. I don't miss it at all. And I'm, because at first I was like, oh, like, I'll let's stay updated on my friends' lives. Or there's something like really juicy happening on like someone's Snapchat story, like I won't know what's going on. But I think like in terms of like staying in touch with friends, it's forced me to kind of go out of my way and make effort to call them or gonna say write letters, but no, like or just text them instead of just sending a picture of my face. The downside to that, of course, is I've lost contact with a lot of people that I do wish I had stayed in contact with, but I think then it kind of forces me to like when I'm actually back home, like reach out to them and be like, even though if it's like kind of weird and we haven't talked for like months, and just be like, hey, let's grab like coffee sometime.
Yeah, I feel like streaks are a love-hate relationship with them because like they do let like me like keep in contact with people that I'm not very close with, and I would never like text to have like a conversation. But also it's so stupid, like you're getting a picture of my face every single day and like it's the same face, or it's like a picture of me laying in bed every single day, or like a picture of like my room every single day, like there's not like any great value to these pictures that I send daily. But also at this point, like someone might like my highest streak is at like 900 days or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And like when I like travel places, I have like people like do my streaks, which is just like I feel like I'm like really far down the rabbit hole of like streak keeping, but like I've already invested so much time into it that's really hard for me to like pull out.
It's like kind of having to hire a babysitter for my social media, which I felt like my social media started to control my life instead of the other way around, and that was really scary for me. I deleted Facebook just because I felt like it really didn't bring anything productive or interesting to my life. And really all the time I spent was just scrolling through posts and getting updates from groups that I no longer really cared about.
For like my sorority and for the publication that I write with, it's like very much like Facebook based. Like occasionally they'll send an email, but like even for like the like really big like pay your dues and like that sort of thing, it's like on Facebook. So it'd be really hard for me to not use Facebook. Like I don't really use it for like the purpose of like posting like albums anymore. Like how people used to post like this is what I did over the summer and like 100 pictures. I've never used it like that, but I still use it for like the I guess like I don't know, like the networking. It's not networking, it's like the groups aspect, and then like selling and buying textbooks and like stuff like that is still like very much like on Facebook. I feel like the original intent of Facebook was to connect people one-on-one. It's like like your old college friends or whatever, or like updating people with your like life and like posting like status updates, and like just no one uses Facebook for that anymore. It's either for like school things or like giant meme groups, which is interesting how like society has like back to like society has like taken like the original intent of like a social media app and like changed it. But I think that's just like that is how it is with anything that you like put out into society. Like it just gets like yeeted away. Yeah, for Instagram, I feel like there are a lot of people that like don't spark joy, or like I just never knew in high school, but I still follow them because I'm like, what if I run into them? like back home, and then it's like awkward or like someone brings it up. But then there are also some people that like have unfollowed me, which I'm like, I kind of get surprised, but then I'm like, oh well, we weren't really friends in high school, and like we're not going to see each other now, so like it kind of makes sense. But I'm also still like, really? Is it weird to take an Instagram or like online friendship into the real world? Like, do you have any friends that you like mainly interact with online and then you like became friends with them in person? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't think so though. Maybe because I feel like I've used social media a lot less recently.
Yeah, I mean,
But
you don't.
definitely think like there are tons of people who are like internet friends first, and there's people who are into like gaming, or what are other like, or like influencers or YouTubers
Yeah.
who definitely build these communities and relationships online.
I read this article somewhere about these like pro anorexia groups on Tumblr, which was like a huge problem that Tumblr had, like the pro anorexia like hashtag or whatever, like because there were a lot of like, it's called like thinspo, so like thin inspiration, and that was a huge problem where like people would post like pictures of like very skinny girls who like may or may not have been like naturally that skinny, and then like these like anorexic people would like form kind of like community groups. And I forget where I read this, but people were talking about how like sometimes these groups would give them like a sense of like belonging and community because these were people who like supported their like goals in like an unhealthy way, of course, but like they all had the same goal, so they were like all accepted by each other. But then like when if people like recovered or like went to, I don't know if like rehab is the word, but like if they tried to get out of those habits, they would then kind of like sometimes they might like lose these friends, because when you form a friendship so like solely based on one thing and you like lose that thing, it can be hard to like maintain the same like group of friends.
Like people you don't know on the internet who have the power to kind of change your behavior and who you are.
That's like influencers in general, you know, like getting like, especially now that Instagram has like the shop feature like within, you know what I'm talking about, where you can like tap the photo and it'll like give you the price and you can like click on the link and everything. So like influencers are making like massive amounts of money from that, which kind of like, I don't know, it's interesting because like this person is influencing you to like buy whatever they have.
I think it's so interesting how like I'm definitely guilty of this, how we like idolize people that we know virtually nothing about just because of the way they look or they dress. Kind of the same thing as like celebrity obsession, but at least for that, like they're say a model or an actress and you kind of know something about them. But some influencers, have you noticed, like they don't even have like a caption per se. They just like post a photo and then they have like tons of followers just because they look like they're really pretty.
Yeah. Do you know, I think like I forget her username, but her name's like Waiki.
Yeah.
I like dresses? Yeah, she has like really long hair and she's always wearing dresses. And I used to follow her because I was like, oh, her style's pretty cute. But then I was like, there's nothing personal about her, you know, like she posts like occasional photos with like her significant other, unclear if like he's a boyfriend or a husband or whatever. But I feel like it's like super interesting because like with it, like influencers on social media, you have this like, you feel like you're closer to them because you're like, oh, they're like a regular person, they just have like tons of followers and like all these other things, free clothes, whatever. But like with apps like Facetune and like Maytoo, is that how you say it? Maytoo?
I think, yeah. Ooh, good check.
Thank you.
Say
with like editing apps like that, it's like kind of harder for people in general to make a distinction between like because when we look in a magazine, we're like we expect that like the model or the celebrity or whatever has been photoshopped in some way, like either like they've been made skinnier, like their skin has been retouched, like something has been done to them. But like we don't tend to realize that like Instagram influencers or Instagram models or whatever are just as like able to edit their bodies and their faces if they want. So I feel like I've read a lot of like articles and seen a lot of videos about how like Instagram and social media in general might be pushing more of an unhealthy body image than magazines and traditional media, because we have this like false sense that these people are like closer to us in a way. And like, and sometimes they are, you know, they're very like, there are lots of like quirky, relatable Instagram influencers who are just very attractive and they're very transparent about like, this is what I eat, this is what I do to like work out and whatever. But there are also people who like Photoshop and like Facetune and like whatever, you know. So I feel like it's interesting to see how media is changing.
Like I was thinking about how sometimes we talk about like say best dressed aka Ashley, who like, and we like talk about her like she's our friend, and then we talk, and so it's almost like because we get this like little snippet of her life, and it's cut this like pretty realistic, and she's one of the more I think like transparent and down to earth YouTubers out there, but at the same time it just feels like we think we know so much about them, but we only get 1% of their life.
A lot of YouTubers feel like they have to justify and explain why they aren't sharing personal parts of their lives, like their breakups or if they have like health issues or whatever, but like you, like as a person, you're not expected to share everything about yourself. And I feel like people online tend to want to like know everything about a person just because they share certain parts about themselves, and that's not really like, I don't know, like they're still people, so we shouldn't expect to like know everything about them, because like yes, I am curious about like her breakup and like, you know, her family life or whatever, but like she's a person and she has like her right to her privacy. Here we are like discussing her like so thoroughly.
In some sense, sometimes maybe because it's like on a screen, we kind of forget that this is kind of like a favor they're doing to us to share their like, and they're not obligated in any sense to do so.
Like transparency is kind of like a double-edged sword, because like in one sense, like yes, we want people, especially people who have like influence, like Instagrammers, YouTubers, whatever, we want them to disclose if they're getting paid for something, if they're like editing their photos, if they've had like surgery or like whatever, but also we expect them to disclose if they've, you know, like what their family income is like, why they're not making videos, why they broke up with someone, what their like relationship status is. And like I feel like there's some things that like I feel like we as like consumers should be more understanding of people's choices to share or to not share. And do you feel like you have like a social media brand? Like, do you know what I mean?
I don't think so. I don't think I'm relevant enough.
No, but I'm saying I feel like on a lesser extent, like I guess brand can kind of be synonymous with feed. Like, do you have a feed? Do you have like a kind of an angle that you're approaching your social media with? Like, oh, like this is something that I would post. Like, for example, like Eve Donnelly, our favorite ASMR local. Like she
What if someone watches this and sends it?
no one watches past like 3 minutes in our videos.
Okay,
so you just put this in the middle, no one will ever see it. But I was gonna say like she has a very specific brand, and like granted she has like 100K or something by now, so like obviously she has a brand. But like, do you ever look at someone's picture and like know like, oh, like that like editing and that like caption is like very like on brand for them? I know certain jobs and certain internships will look at your social media before they hire you, and it's the same for like some organizations and some sororities. So in that aspect, your social media should and has to kind of reflect who you are. And like, have you ever like followed someone on Instagram and then met them in real life and been like, wow, this person was like not at all what I expected them to be?
Oh yeah.
So I feel like in a way like your social media is your brand, because like that's what people are seeing and judging you off of. So it is in your interest to like have your social media reflect you accurately in some aspect, and also to have like a good social media, like whatever that means to you. So I feel like in that way, like yes, I care about what I post, and I feel like everyone does, and I am aware that like people are gonna like judge me off of it.
You look through my feed, it's a lot of like travel photos and stuff like that, and that is most definitely not what I'm doing most of the time. And now that we all know that it's like Instagram and other social media, it's just a highlight reel of our lives, I've kind of realized how disillusioning it is. It's because a lot of people I thought were having kind of like the best times of their lives in college. Like I talked to them and they'd be very like, oh, like it was fine. And then like the friends who I thought they were like really, really close with, they're like, oh, you know, we have some issues. So like of course we all know that social media is not an accurate reflection of our lives, but just to hear so many people say that and compare it to the impression I got from their social media was kind of just another shock.
So many people have like either like they use like the close friends thing on Instagram to like make that their finsta, or they have a finsta and they have like a private Snapchat story. So I feel like with like the whole pressure of social media to make your life seem like perfect and super interesting, there's also this like counterculture that's like, well, let me share like all the horrible things that have happened to me, like all the little like quirky, relatable things that like you've seen, you know. Maybe it balances out, maybe it doesn't, where it kind of like, you know, like depending on how close you are with the person, it kind of like reminds you that like their life isn't perfect.
in conclusion,
I hope this essay has proved.
that's how we should start it. We should just be like, in this essay, I will explain how.
In a given world where.